Well, I am excited to do the second installment of my live stream series, reacting to old videos. I was like, this is going to be a fun series, but I mean, like, what series, right? I mean, like, I have 4 videos. I have not watched my Stalin video in like maybe years, and I was like, I cringed. I cringed watching it. Like people are like, "Did you take it down because you're embarrassed?" And it's like I'm not embarrassed by the content. I mean, I still stand by 90% of what I said, but it's like the production quality is just like so bad. And it's like really embarrassing for me. How can I watch the Stalin video, right? I only have I only have 4 videos. But to find the Stalin video, just click the debunking every anti-communist argument ever video. But at the bottom here, at the bottom in the description, there are a bunch of links, and then right here is the Stalin view. You can't see my cursor, but I'm hovering over the "Was Stalin Really That Bad?" unlisted, and you can click it later, and you can watch it for yourself. So for people who've been asking, how do I find it? But that's how you can find it from me officially. My official position on how to find that shit. Yes, I wrote in the comments why I unlisted it. So it says, to clarify, to confuse viewers, I unlisted this video for a variety of reasons, blah, blah, blah. I used copyrighted music for the intro. Yeah, that was annoying. That was really fucking annoying. So the first 2 minutes of the video are basically, like, gutted. Oh yeah, the poor production quality, lack of backgrounds, poor lip syncing. You're just gonna see me cringe. Like, this whole stream is just gonna be me fucking cringing. And my old shit. And although I agree with the bulk of the content, I've revised a few of my assessments. Yes, I have revised a few of my assessments. Research is too superficial for my liking. I think I only really cited like 1 or 2 studies. This was, keep in mind, by the way, keep in fucking mind, this video 8 years ago. Holy shit. That's 2018. Guys, this is like 2025. Wait, is that 8? That's 7 years ago. Never mind. I guess I can't count. Sorry, but it's 7 fucking years ago. Holy shit. Also, why did this many people view this? This is so embarrassing. I can't. So some fun things I figured out. I figured out this VTuber program a bit more. So like once again, janky ass VTuber shit. Check this shit out. Check this shit out that I can do with my VTuber thing. Like, look. Boom. I can change poses, so now it's not as boring. So like, excuse me? The YouTube version, I covered this a little bit before, but the YouTube version is like gutted to hell. It is like actually the worst shit imaginable. Like, once again, I said the first 2 seconds are pretty much cut out. It is really fucking annoying for me. So like, if you pay attention, look at this. Later. Look at that. Like you can just tell like 2 seconds of it are cut out. And it's like, fuck, well, 2 minutes of it are cut out. And it's so fucking annoying. So actually, I have a very fun surprise for everyone in the stream. This is a special version of the video that I have just on my hard drive. I just changed the first bit. So this is actually my first video ever, my first professional video. So how I got started making content on YouTube is a fun story. It is actually on Reddit. I know, very cringe. I started making animations on Reddit like 10 years ago. I think it was 10 years ago. I used to make shitty stick figure animations on the full communism subreddit. So this is my old Reddit account. And so I really should fucking nuke this shit because it's so embarrassing. This is like 8 years ago. But I used to like post fucking some shitty animations. Hey, see, this is the one that's on my channel. What's the ones on my channel? It has 800 updates. 800 updates. So I got started on the full communism subreddit. They were too supportive. Can I be so honest? They were too fucking supportive of my animation career. And that's, without the full communism subreddit, I don't think I'd be here right now, which is embarrassing to say, especially since the full communism subreddit, I don't think it's been like quarantined to hell. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, I think the last post was a year ago. I don't know if they even allow posts anymore. Now that I've gone to my origins, right? I was like, I make shitty stick figure animations on Reddit, and I actually posted them on YouTube. They're private now, and I'm never going to show them unless they do, like, I'm really desperate for content. But, I was like, I want to do a real video. And this was my first real video, Was Stalin Really That Bad? This is my first try at long form content that wasn't just cutaway gags. Deprogram got banned, guy. It got banned on 9/11 after Charlie Kirk got murked, which is crazy. That's so sad, guys. Like, I don't know what good subreddits even exist anymore. Sorry, I'm a yapper. Like, I love yapping about myself. And you know what? That's what these live streams are. They're about me. I'm gonna stop edging you. I'm gonna stop glazing myself, and we'll watch. Okay, wow. Okay, so this title sequence, I love to do little edited title sequences for each of my videos. You know, like the Smash Bros is like the big ones I use for the debunking series, but this one is a reference to Parks and Recreation, which is like a TV show that was popular like a decade ago. I don't think it's really popular now. I kind of feel like a millennial who's like, oh, I love The Office. I'm like, oh, I love Parks and Recreation. It's like, no. So the Parks and Recreation theme is why the original video got like the first 2 minutes is cut out, because it's copyrighted music. So I like put in the 8-bit remix. I'll probably like put a link in the description on the highlights. But like, I just replaced it with an 8-bit remix so it won't get fucking copyright struck or whatever, and the YouTube gods won't get mad at me. Okay, so when I was editing this, I was like, holy fuck, I forgot I put 10,000 dead cops on the fucking intro. Holy shit, that's so funny. I was a lot edgier back then. I had like 200 subscribers, so I like did not give a fuck about what I put on screen. Okay, someone said baby Kim Jong-un, or the baby meme clip of Kim Jong-un is racist. I don't know. I mean, I'm Asian, but like I'm not Korean. Am I gonna get canceled, guys? Am I gonna get fucking canceled for this? Sorry if it's racist by accident. And then guest starring ethical capitalism, and it's like a error screen because there's no such thing. I don't know why this random kid is dabbing. I just included it for no reason. But I'm like, funded by George Soros. That was like a bit on the cultural Bolshevism, the right-wing conspiracy theory, where it's like, you know, George Soros is like the Jewish guy who's fucking funding all these left-wing bullshit. I think a lot of people on BreadTube were like trying to reclaim anti-Semitic dog whistles, and just like ContraPoints used to dress up as a Nazi and do like ironic anti-Semitism to like expose alt-right bullshit. I disagree with that now. I think even ironic bigotry and ironic anti-Semitism is bad. I would not do that today. If you want an official apology, here it is. I apologize for including ironic anti-Semitism in my video. I mean, like, one, it's kind of awesome how I have not changed my avatar in 8 years. It's mostly a result of laziness, can I be honest? Like, I'm just lazy. So I'm like, you know, it works, and I think it's a bit of a whiplash if I change my avatar too much. But I have gold glasses now. Look, I have gold glasses. I also have red hair. I'm a ginger, guys. I dyed my hair red, like, literally 3 days ago. Before we even start, right? What's the white background? It's so lazy. Although, to be fair, that's the that was the standard for all the animation channels back in the day, just a white background. Also, I suppose you read Grover Fur. Girl, Grover Fur's in the video. Where the fuck is he? Look, there he is. Although he's more of a meme than like an actual serious citation.
Stalin has always been a contentious point for people in the left and the general public. And since my audience is virtually zero right now,
I did have like 300, 400 subscribers, so like pretty much fucking nobody was watching me. Also, I don't understand the graphics I put here. I put like a turn left sign and a re-normies. I don't know, I just wanted to fill in the white space, but my thing is, you know, you could fill that in by putting an actual fucking background. Oh yeah, that's another thing about this video. You're gonna see, but like halfway through the video, the lip sync gets so fucking off. Like, the lip sync is actually god awful. Like, it's even worse than this janky shit that I have right now on stream. I'm like, good lord.
Virtually zero right now. It makes sense to make.
Oh yeah, so this is another fun thing about my animation style. I used to do smears. So whenever I change poses, I'd like have little smear frames. I changed that. It's motion lines on most of my main videos now. But like, it just looks weird when you pause the video. Like, if you pause the video here, it just looks fucking weird. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stop doing that. Also, it's not like historically accurate. Like I do rubber hose style animation, and they did motion lines back in the day. They didn't really do smears.
Makes sense to make this video earlier instead of later.
Yeah, so I had like 300 subscribers, and I was like, you know, if I'm gonna be an open communist, I might as well make a video about Stalin first, because, you know, I can filter people out over time. And you know what? It kind of worked, but then I just unlisted this video because it was cringe as fuck. And I don't know if people, like, this video only has 200,000 views, so I'm like, I don't know if people remember the Stalin video. Like, do people remember this? I get so many fucking comments being like, where's your Stalin video? Where's your Stalin video? But that might just be a small segment of the actual audience.
Whenever I tell anyone in real life that I'm a socialist, they always say something like, oh, so you support evil dictators that killed tens of millions of people like Stalin, right? And I'm like,
yes. The funniest comment was like, why did the intro begin with like, so you support evil dictators like Stalin, right? And then like the rest of the video is like going on to defend him. The reason I made this video actually was that roadblock to like self-identifying as a communist, right? It's like, you know, when the biggest, I think, mental hurdle to making that jump to communism is, you know, like, what about Stalin? What about Mao? What about all these evil dictators? You know, they like, didn't they kill 50 million people? As much as we can like talk about all these like different things about like common ownership means production, blah blah blah, about fucking, you know, how capitalism is gonna actually kill us and fuck us over, you know, we actually do need to seriously engage with what the average person thinks of when they think of communism, which is, you know, evil dictator Stalin and whatnot. I still think the very idea of like tackling the issue head on instead of being like avoiding the topic, like, oh, well, Stalin wasn't real communism, you know, we don't need to talk about that. Like, I think that's a cop-out. Like, it's lame.
I mean, who even was Stalin? There's all these mean rumors flying around and starting to hurt his feelings. What's fact and what's fiction?
There's all these mean rumors flying around. Stalin killed 60 million people. Stalin was a cruel dictator. And then, of course, his boy pussy wasn't tight. Look how sad Stalin is when you call his boy pussy loose.
Revisionist, hopefully I said that right.
I did not, apparently. Like, I had multiple comments telling me that I did not pronounce that shit right.
He was born in 1878 in a small town in Georgia. He was frequently beaten by his father and an only child.
So, I do like a little short biography. I think it's a bit shit. It's a bit of a shit biography, right? Because one, this is the thing that always bothers me with Stalin biographies, is they always delve into this weird psychoanalytic bullshit. You know, like he was beaten by his dad, and therefore that's why he became an evil tyrant and dictator later on. And it's like, you know, maybe that's not a direct connection, you know, like maybe you're jumping the gun a little bit here. You know, they like love to overanalyze like a bunch of like minute details, like, oh, this is proof that from the very moment he was born, Stalin was like a dictator in the cradle. And I'm like, you know, maybe we should I don't know, look at him as an adult, as a political actor, and not like overemphasize this like childhood psychoanalytic bullshit, you know. So I think I fell a little bit into that trap here. So I'm self-criticizing, and also I don't know. To be fair, I did take my cue from like bourgeois histories and whatnot.
In the October Revolution, Lenin came to power, founding the Soviet Union in 1922.
I love the terrible mixing of this video. Like the music is so fucking loud. It's so fucking loud.
In 1924, Stalin outmaneuvered his rivals and rose to power.
And it's like, people shit on me for saying Stalin outmaneuvered his rivals and came into power. And I'm gonna be so real with you. Like, do you want me to get into like the nitty gritty of like the triumvirate and how Stalin, you know, fucking sided with Bukharin for the NEP, and then sided when the end of the NEP, he formed another triumvirate. And it's like, look, the Bolshevik sort of line struggle at this point was very complicated. And like, this was a 13-minute introductory video. You know, I think using the word outmaneuvered is fine. People were like, oh wow, you said outmaneuvered, blah blah blah, you're like overlooking all this stuff. I'm like, okay girl, grow up, meanie pants.
You can hear the rhetoric everywhere. Stalin killed 60 million people, or 50 million people, or 40. Basically, it isn't hard to find huge death.
Oh wow, I had a TPUSA meme 7 years ago? 6-7 years ago, but I'm like, this is Stalin, he killed 100 gazillion kulaks. Still think socialism is cool, and then it's toilet paper USA. Isn't that crazy? Kirk is dead. He's fucking dead. I think almost all of my videos have had like some variation of a TPUSA meme.
But when you look deeper at these numbers, you'll begin to find that there are two camps. According to Europe, a History by Norman Davies, Stalin killed around 50 million people. Let's keep that information tucked in our little chart here.
I love how I fucked up this little graphic here. And I said he killed 50 million people, and then in my graphic I accidentally put he's 60 million, and then I was too lazy to even fix it, so I put correction. I love how shitty my delivery is here in the video. Like my delivery is like so dry. And it's so slow. Like I didn't cut out the pauses. Like a lot of my modern videos today are like very fast paced and move very fast. But like I'm like, bro, 2x speed, please. Can we get to the point?
In terms of Soviet terror, there were 8 to 9 million deaths during the 30s.
I love how dog shit this entire segment is. I am comparing things that are like either in the 1930s or for the entirety of like Stalin's reign as head of state of the Soviet Union, right? And I'm like, is this comparable? Like I should have at least controlled for time period, you know?
Even if we adjust these estimates to apply only to the 1930s, there's still a huge difference with these estimates.
But I mean, like, I don't know. It's like, if you acknowledge that the death counts are different in the 1930s and overall, like, why don't you just stick to one time period? Like, either do the entirety of Stalin's sort of reign as head of state or just stick to the 1930s.
Your number camp has an average of 20.
I love this shitty pun. Look at this. High camp and low camp, and it's just like tense. A lot of this is a very shallow, superficial reading of Soviet historiography. Like, one, I misread Cold Warriors as Cold War warriors. Like, just a very basic typo.
The Cold War warriors, with extremely high estimates that criticize historians with lower estimates for defending Stalin and refusing to accept facts. The other camp is the revisionists, who have criticized the Cold War warriors for using second-hand sources and presenting hard-to-justify figures. Side note, before we get into the numbers, it's easy to accuse lower estimators as irrationally defending Stalin. But it's ridiculous to do that, because 3 million deaths is not somehow better than 7 million deaths.
True.
There was obviously huge amounts of suffering, and trying to determine the
I love my little lib interruption here.
historical record doesn't undermine that fact.
Like I think that's a big point that a lot of people have to grapple with. But I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter whether Stalin killed like 30 million or it doesn't matter if he killed only like, let's say, you know, 5 million, right? I mean, I think the truth matters, right? I think that's why we as Marxists, as scientific socialists, you know, exist, right? Because we think the truth matters. And I think that's why most people are here on this planet, because, you know, the truth matters, right? I also think it's important to contextualize, right? What do we mean by Stalin killed people? Why is there so much disagreement if we all want the truth? Yeah, I mean, like, it's all, I mean, like, a lot of it was a lack of sources. You know, like, a lot of the Cold Warriors versus revisionist debate in Soviet historiography was just a lack of having any sort of serious archival sources. I think that changed a lot in the 1990s after, rest in peace, the Soviet Union was illegally dissolved. And, you know, we had more access to sources. I agree with Smoke Jaguar as well. Moneyed interests. I mean, this was also the period of the Cold War, right? I mean, a lot of American historians just wanted to, like, shit on the Soviet Union by any means necessary. So, like, they would just, like, make shit up. I think today, though, you know, for the most part, I think the revisionists kind of won out the debates of the period. Overall, you know, there were some points where they were wrong. I think Soviet historians today are less interested in this idea that, you know, communism is this totalitarian ideology that, you know, inexorably leads to millions of people dying. And they're more interested in looking at how sort of historical contingencies and how historical reality at the time sort of forged the Soviet state. And they're more open of, like, talking about, like, understanding Stalin in his time period rather than, you know, this dogma of Stalin killed 50 bajillion people, right? I think Soviet history today is a lot better. I mean, we don't have the shadow of the Cold War anymore. Another thing a lot of, like, historians look at nowadays is, like, looking at, like, the broader reality of the Soviet Union. You know, I mean, like, you know, they were isolated after World War I, right? The German Revolution failed to materialize. You know, the Soviet Union was really banking on global revolution, but they ended up being isolated. You know, like, the Soviet Union had to build socialism in one country or they were doomed, right? And if you're a revolutionary in Russia and, you know, these people are saying, just give up, you know, try to export the revolution worldwide, you know, I mean, like, I think it's a bit silly. you know. And like, let's be real here, you know, I think Trotsky and Stalin's different positions on socialism in one country weren't that big, right? It was a difference of material reality, right? Stalin did promote the Communist International, so he did promote a bit of internationalism. And Trotsky, you know, he also probably was promoted the idea of building socialism in the Soviet Union, right? So I think, you know, all this debate of socialism in one country versus permanent revolution, I think it's overblown. And I mean, maybe we should learn from them. I think that's the important thing, right? Not dogmatically eating up everything Stalin and Mao did, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, a lot of their projects need to be continued.
What does it mean to be a death under Stalin? Some historians calculate the birth rate before Stalin and then the population after Stalin and use the deficit to calculate his death count. But this is not only an incredibly wrong way to count death, it also counts people who weren't born and ignores the fact that war and tumultuous periods typically lower birth rates. Other historians
I wish I could have been more specific in this section. I wish I could have talked about like which historian specifically uses this methodology and you know, use that as critique. I don't have the source on hand right now, but like that's the big thing about these older videos is I wish they would have been more academic and rigorous.
archival evidence during this time has been released and cooled down the debate a bit. The paper, Victims of the Soviet
I cite this paper a lot, and I think this paper is what got me into history, honestly. You know, it's like the debate between Cold Warriors and revisionists in Soviet historiography is like such an interesting debate, although it's mostly like gone nowadays. It doesn't really exist in terms of like the actual scholarship. They've like mostly moved on to other questions. But I mean, it's such an interesting debate to see like, you know, these like see these 60-year-old men arguing about like figures from the Soviet Union, you know, in the 1930s. I mean, it's such a fun and interesting debate. And I think, you know, I realized I really like seeing all these historical debates. And I kind of want to do that in college. And that's, you know, that's one of the reasons I majored in history.
According to the paper, the long-awaited archival evidence on the repression in the period of the Great...
Seriously? Wait, are you fucking serious? I just have like I have a still screenshot of a paper? I didn't even like put an underline or a highlight. Wow. Also, I love how the music is so dramatic. I think this music got copyright struck in the original, so that's why I sound like a bit airy in the original YouTube video, is because like they had to like remove this video while keeping my vocals in. And also, I wish I would have delved a bit more into like Soviet historiography. I mean, it's like this video is pretty much a dive into bourgeois Soviet historiography, and I feel like I don't do it a good enough service. And also, this is one study of like a rich multitude that exists in the field. So I think this isn't like the definitive response, right? I mean, like Cold Warriors still to this day, they're still coping, guys. Cold Warriors to this day are still fucking coping. They're like, oh no, I wasn't owned. I wasn't fucking owned by the revisionist guys. And I think it could have been nice to like talk a lot about the nuances of like how bourgeois historians have changed their views on Soviet history with the fall of the Soviet archives.
The columns aren't filled out, so let's take a look at the 1937 to 38 total arrests and see the difference from reality and actual documentable data.
Facts. Oh yeah, the Soviet archives absolutely showed that like a lot of the higher end estimates were like bullshit. Absolutely. I think a lot of the higher end estimates were just like nonsense.
Bases for these assessments are unclear in most cases and seem to have come from guesses, rumors, or extrapolations from isolated local observation.
I think that's like a big problem with Stalin historiography in general, right? Like people love to write histories of Stalin based on like a number of select memoirs from his political opponents. Don't get me wrong, I think it's always important to look at every source, right? But in general, like these memoirs are just like, I mean, they obviously have a political agenda, right? I mean, like Trotsky is like, oh, Stalin was a gray blur during the Russian Revolution, as if Stalin didn't play like a significant role in organizing and being a part of the Russian Revolution, as well as like leading the Red Army during the Russian Civil War, right? I mean, like there's like this great stereotype of Stalin as the gray mediocrity, right? He was always a background character. Stalin was an NPC, and then just by random luck or by being, you know, cruel and evil, he somehow managed to become the head of state of the Soviet Union. And yeah, I mean, like that's a narrative you can get from like the memoirs of his political opponents, right? But if you like take him seriously and look at his like actual revolutionary role in the Russian Civil War and the Russian Revolution, I mean, you know, Trotsky definitely played a big role in both of those events, but I mean, Stalin was like probably second to Trotsky. Right? Stalin was a Georgian. The majority of Georgian communists were Mensheviks, right? If Stalin just wanted power and wanted to go with the flow, he could have been a Menshevik. It would have been easy for him as a Georgian communist, right? But he was like, no, I agree with Lenin's political line. I'm going to be a Bolshevik, right? So I mean, he very clearly had political lines, he had ideological lines that he believed in, right? Like the thing about the Stalin versus Trotsky thing, right, is like Trotsky just ended up fucking himself over in a lot of ways. I think I kind of regret a little bit of my against Trotskyism video. That's a bit too dogmatic for my taste in terms of like my second channel video against Trotskyism. But like Trotsky did great things in terms of the Russian Civil War, in terms of the Russian Revolution. He played a very big role in the Revcom, the Revolutionary Committee. Right, and Stalin, you know, a lot of his library, you know, he read Trotsky, he took Trotsky seriously. So I think like a lot of this dogma of like anti-Trotskyism really is like a bit silly. I mean, like Stalin himself respected and read a lot of his work. Trotsky, the part of the reason for his fall was, you know, himself. He kind of fucked himself over. He was like shit at inter-party politics. He was shit at maneuvering, right, and shit at arguing his line. You know, I mean, like he was just kind of a dipshit in the party, and he kind of alienated a lot of people. I think there's a lot more nuance to Trotsky than the fucking memes that we have online.
Gulags are often compared to
Holy fuck. Holy fuck. I'm like, what is this? Like the lip sync is so off. I don't know if you guys can tell because the stream has a little bit of latency issues, but like the fucking lip sync is like a full 1 to 2 seconds off.
Gulags are often compared to Nazi death camps, but this is an unfair comparison. According to the paper from earlier, when looking at official archival evidence, many of the inmates in the Gulag camps were freed and death rates were low. Only a minority.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, I feel like that's such a basic point. Yeah, gulags weren't extermination camps.
Because some were just arrests of general criminals that would have been arrested anyway in a Western society. So, Gulag camp populations.
I mean, yeah, that's a basic good point, right? It's like gulags. You know, not everyone was a political prisoner. They were just like, some of them were general criminals. Although, you know, I think there's been a lot of good discourse raised about, you know, prisons in general and the city of punitive versus restorative justice. I think, you know, we should take the Soviet penal system for what it was, which is, you know, very different from extermination camps under Hitler. But also we should, you know, try to move beyond. Like, I'm not a very punitive justice type of guy. You know, I think restorative justice is always good. You know, I think the story of the last Chinese emperor is very telling, right? How sort of the Chinese communists tried to teach him the error of his ways, and he just became, you know, a humble sort of sweeps person, you know, in China, and he learned, you know, hey, you know, when I was Chinese emperor and I had a concubine, I was actually doing sexual assault against her, and she felt extremely violated, and that was really bad of me to do. And talking to peasants, being like, well, yeah, you know, while you were enriching yourself, you know, we were starving, you know, and then like he did penance and he lived a humble life. I think that is good. I think restorative communist justice is good. I you know, like I think a lot of communists nowadays are like, oh, face the wall, go to the Gulag camps. I'm like, you know, maybe we shouldn't always do that. And like, you know, I'm not going to condemn the Soviet Union for doing that. I mean, I think definitely in moments of heightened contradiction, right? If when you're at war with Nazi hordes and they're invading your country, like you don't really have the time to do restorative justice, you know? So obviously context matters, I think. But in general, you know, in moments where you're not in like open warfare with like fascists, I think restorative justice is a good approach, and we should always try to rehabilitate and re-educate people, you know, not through violence, but through, you know, dialogue and talking things out, you know. The fuck? Oh, wow, so deep. I changed Gulag to Gitmo. And like my thing is like, yeah, Guantanamo Bay is bad, and like these torture chambers are bad, right? But it's like that's just like a kind of a bit of a whataboutism. And so I think it's not enough for me to be like, oh, you know, the Soviet Union is like cruel and unusual punishments and violent. Well, so is, you know, the United States. Well, yeah, but like both can be bad, right? Both can be bad. You know, you can criticize both. You don't have to just do actually we're the same. It's like, yeah, but we should be better than the United States. I think we should hold ourselves up to a higher standard. That is also a good point, right? I mean, the gulags get demonized a lot. I mean, like, what, Gulag Archipelago is like high school reading now? You know, I mean, how many high schoolers do you think have read the new Jim Crow, right? Probably none.
Socialism and Nazism are essentially the same thing. Nazi does stand for National Socialism, right? Well, misnomers are a thing. You know, you ever heard of them? Do you people just think misnomers are made up by cultural Marxists to trick people into believing they know things? You know, North Korea's official name is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Does that mean they're a Democratic People's Republic? Actually, yes they are. Forget the comparison. But anyway.
Oh, this is probably my favorite joke from this video. You know, it's a good subversion of expectations. It's a good joke. I fuck with the joke. It's a good joke. I'll probably use this joke again for the remake.
Remnants of socialism and the Nazi Party were all purged in the Night of Long Knives when Hitler killed anyone.
I love this pun. It's like the Night of Long Knives, and it's a long knife.
Although the Nazis and Soviets did have a non-aggression pact, that was only after Stalin.
What the fuck is this? Excuse me, miladies? Would you mind having a military alliance with the gentleman gamer country?
Tried and failed to form an anti-Nazi coalition with Britain and France, who were following a policy of.
No thanks. We prefer Chad Nazi Germany.
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. I have mixed feelings on it. I think a lot of MLs and Marxist-Leninists are quick to be like, oh, but, you know, France and Britain had their own non-aggression pact, and the Soviet Union was the last really big major European power to do it with Nazi Germany, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you can read that, you know, read it in Joseph Stalin's Falsifiers of History. Or I don't know if Stalin was the official writer, but he did help draft a big portion of that, right? I think a big thing that Falsifiers of History misses out on, right? And I think it does raise good points. I think, you know, it is valid, it is true that the Soviet Union was the last major European power to ever have a non-aggression pact with Germany, right? After Britain, after France, right? But at the same time, I think it's also fair to say that the Soviet Union went a little bit beyond non-aggression, right? I mean, like, there were secret protocols in the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact that Falsifiers of History doesn't really talk about. I think the Soviet Union went above and beyond just non-aggression. Like, when you look at what instructions they sent to communist parties abroad, you know, especially like, you know, encourage your country not to go to war with Nazi Germany, or, and I mean, my thing, like, even like sending munitions to Nazi Germany, although to be fair to the Soviets, they did receive like grain and agricultural produce back, right? So it wasn't like just free shit to Nazi Germany. But I think overall, even within the context of the Soviets being historically forced into a non-aggression pact with Germany, I still think they went too far in certain instances. So, you know, that's where I've delved a little bit from orthodoxy in terms of my views on Molotov-Ribbentrop.
However, many like to call the Holodomor a genocide caused by Stalin, and it's very strange to do that when there was already a poor harvest at the time. Ukraine worse because they were an important agricultural center. However, this wasn't deliberately targeted at Ukraine, and this can be seen in the way that other parts of Russia suffered as well.
I think in this video I took the very mainstream bourgeois historian point of view that, you know, the Holodomor, quote unquote, is not a genocide because obviously, you know, it affected areas beyond Ukraine. You know, you look at the North Caucasus, you look at the Volga region, right? I mean, Kazakhstan was absolutely brutalized in terms of the famine of 32 to 33. Like, the Soviets were not intentionally targeting Ukraine for like extermination, you know, with the famine, right? I think that's pretty firm in the Soviet historiography. I mean, like, most mainstream historians agree that it's not a genocide. I mean, like, it's been revived a little bit because of the war, the Ukraine-Russian war. You know, there's like a lot of valorization of like Ukrainian nationalist myths or whatever. And it's just bad history. The video itself is like, it takes a very soft approach to Stalin. I mean, like, based on the title, you'd think I'd be like fucking Grover Fur type shit. But like, you know, I take a very mainstream bourgeois historian perspective in the main content of the video, and I think that's fine.
Certain peasants also hoarded grain and slaughtered their own livestock to fight the collectivization movement.
Okay, so people were like, I think one of the response videos to me was like, oh my god, guys, he did subliminal messaging. He put Kulaks deserved worse in a frame of his video. Oh my god, guys, I'm like brainwashing you. I'm an evil communist. I'm brainwashing you by putting frame short jokes in my video. I differ a little bit from this video. I think the Kulaks didn't play that big of a role. There aren't that many mainstream historians who talk about, I don't think there are any mainstream historians who talk about Kulaks as a serious, like, cause of the famine of 32 to 33. I think that's, you know, a little bit of a Marxist-Leninist stereotype that likes to blame kulaks for a lot of things. You know, I would not include this in a modern recreation. let me do a dramatic reading. The virgin US, capitalist, regular recessions, falls into a Great Depression every once in a while. The fear of the markets, the fear of the people. Racist. Thinks Obamacare is too communist. True. Facts. Appeals to founding fathers that were rich white men. So true. I mean, they were also slave owners. The Chad USSR, rough income inequality. Planned economy grows reliably each year. Cool mustache. Facts. Thick. Free healthcare. Near full employment. Free education. Became a superpower after just a few decades. Based. That's the big thing people forget about. Follows a mortal science of Marxism, Leninism, Pinguism. Remember Pingu jokes, guys? I think Pingu was like an old British cartoon from like back in the day. And like people somehow randomly made the meme that it's like, oh, Pingu is more authoritarian than Stalin, and it just kind of stuck around. It's like really old. It is a very old meme, so I'm showing my age with this. I'm showing my unk. Oh, Pingu was Swiss, not British. I'm sorry, Revo. We have a Pingu expert in chat.
Civil rights activist Paul Robeson put it, in Russia I felt for the first time like a full human being.
You know, I fuck with Paul Robeson. Who doesn't fuck with Paul Robeson?
No color prejudice like in Mississippi, no color prejudice like in Washington. It was the first time I felt like a human being.
I mean, I still think there was important nationalities. There were still problems with nationalities and national minorities in the Soviet Union. I think I kind of brush over that by talking about, you know, how much better they were in terms of like racism. Right? But I mean, the Soviet Union had its problems, right? I mean, like, for example, ethnic deportations were a big issue, and I kind of brush over that. And I don't even talk about it at all in this video. Yes! Yes! Let's go! Guys, do you remember this meme? Spoiler alert, in my next video, I have this as like a frame-second joke. P is stored in the balls. Like, I think almost all my videos have a P is stored in the balls joke.
It's strange that the people who criticize the policies of a country that's been gone for about 3 decades stay silent about their own country's policies, which they actually have influence over.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's like, as much as you can criticize the Soviet Union, it's easy to criticize them. And it's hard to criticize the fucking United States now, because they'll just fucking 1984 your ass. It's crazy how far we've gone to 1984, by the way, guys. Like, I used to think that was a meme, but it's like, you know, pro-Palestine people are getting arrested and deported. Like, they're still trying to fuck over Mahmoud Khalil. And they deported fucking, what, Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Like, what the fuck? We live in actual 1984 shit. This is another thing people don't talk enough. And I should have mentioned this in the video, right? It's like the Soviet Union absolutely fucking owned the United States when it came to civil rights. You know, like the origin for the term whataboutism was when like Soviet diplomats would be like, oh, but you lynch black people, right? And it would be like this huge international like thing, right? It's this huge diplomatic issue where the Soviets would be like, oh, you talk about human rights in the Soviet Union, but what about the human rights in the United States? And it would be like a very important pressure for the United States to take seriously, right? The United States would basically be forced through international diplomacy to address civil rights issues.
It's difficult to have a productive conversation about Stalin without being flooded by 5th grade gotcha remarks that don't really mean anything and only work.
Reasonable claim. Stalin was thick. Bourgeois nonsense.
Yeah, but his boy pussy probably wasn't tight.
All I did was hoard grain. What a tyrant. Except I misspelled what. So all I did was hoard grain. Why a tyrant? Oh my god, I just saw a chat. It says, you sure have different fetishes in each video. I promise, guys, I don't have a thing for vor, or what was the joke I put here? Bussy. I don't have a bussy fetish or a vor fetish. I don't have a vor fetish, guys. Trust, okay? Look, would I lie to you? I swear. You know, look at my hands. I'm like swearing up and down. I do not have a vor fetish. I just think they're hilarious. I think they're hilarious. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Please don't be mad at me. I just think war jokes and bussy jokes are funny.
For example, Stalin's treatment of homosexuals was wrong, hopefully for obvious reasons.
I think the joke is that I'm obviously gay. But it's like, I don't think it's that obvious. Is it that obvious I'm gay, guys? Or, I mean, a bisexual, sorry. Even I confuse myself sometimes.
Doing of social reforms from Lenin was also a bad move.
Oh boy, copyrighted music. I hope fucking YouTube doesn't strike me for this shit. Stalin was a bad feminist. He kind of was a bad feminist, guys. I mean, like, the Soviet Union was very revolutionary when it came to gender, especially in the revolutionary period. Their names don't come to mind, but there were, like, a lot of women Bolsheviks that had fantastic writings. I think Alexandra Kollontai comes to mind. They had very revolutionary, great writings on, like, gender and sexuality. And sort of like the Stalin period was very much a period of like conservatism. I think overall, the Soviet Union was way more advanced in social rights than the United States. I think that is a statement that is uncontroversial, but it's more nuanced than that.
Previously, he also could have dealt with the famine in a much better way.
Did I talk about that enough? I don't know. I mean, I think the famine in Ukraine, it's not a genocide, but also I think famines are not good. I think people starving is bad. I still think collectivization was a historical necessity. But I think, you know, the Soviet Union could have responded a lot better. They could have responded a lot faster. I mean, the Soviets did respond to the famine eventually, but they could have done a lot better of a response. And I think their policies in terms of like, they overestimated how much mechanization would improve agricultural production. And as a result, they had very high requisition amounts, which just were unfeasible. So I think they should have been more realistic and more grounded in terms of their estimates. And I think that played a role in the famine. Although once again, I think weather also played a role. Right, but I think the Soviets cannot escape complete guilt. Although, you know, and another good point here, right, is like after the USSR collectivized agriculture, you know, and after the big 32-33 famine, outside of war times, there was no big, you know, problem with food insecurity in the Soviet Union for the rest of its existence, right? Same with China, right? They had these big famines during collectivization and, you know, the necessity of pushing through industrialization. But after that, they had food security. And, you know, you look at the history of China and Russia, and they had huge famines. You know, almost every century, like once or twice every century. And then after communism came into power, they had famines, and then boom, food security. So I think that's also a big, broader view that people sort of tend to overlook, right? Although once again, you know, I think famines are bad. Famines, hot take, guys, famines are bad.
Why defend the legacy of a man who's been dead for over half a century? It's because the ruling class likes to use Stalin as a talking point. Everywhere you can see comparisons of people to Stalin, as if he were the devil. But almost always, the United States has done the same, if not worse. It's easy to condemn the atrocities that occurred decades ago under a country that hasn't existed for about 30 years. What's harder to do is something about the today committed by us that we have control over. While American nationalists gleefully talk about the Soviet Union's purges and the Holodomor, they remain silent about the US's ongoing support of the Yemen Civil War and the apartheid state of Israel.
Based, fuck Israel. I love how we talk about Yemen and Israel in this video, by the way. It's like, isn't it crazy that like shit's gotten so bad? I mean, at least the Yemeni government is like fighting for the freedom of the people of Gaza. You know, they're like one of the few fucking people on this fucking planet willing to actually put their lives on the line. Shit's gotten pretty bad. I mean, I don't think I even foresaw October 7th happening. I think October 7th really put Gaza and Palestine back on people's maps outside of just, you know, communist and nationalist and sort of Muslim circles. You know, the fucking Freedom Flotilla. Did y'all see that? They're bombing that shit. They're bombing Greta Thunberg. I think Spain and Italy sent some Navy vessels to help out. Although never trust these fucking bourgeois states. They're, you know, I think Italy is pressuring the flotilla to like give up their fucking aid to like some third party, which will then deliver it to Israel. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, right? I mean, you can never trust these capitalist, imperialist states. They're all fucking in bed with the Zionist bullshit.
The brutality of the police and the growing mass surveillance program.
You know, this was before 2020. You know, this was before 2020. This was before October 7th. And you know, I kind of ate with this because I'm like, I was talking about police brutality and Israel's apartheid, ethno-nationalist regime, and like the genocide against Yemeni people.
Isn't to deflect from the bad parts of Stalin's Soviet Union. Certainly just because the US does many of the same things doesn't justify either. But after hearing criticism of the Soviet Union's secret police, prison camps, authoritarian methods of maintaining control, and how it was an undemocratic hellscape, it's time to look in the mirror.
That applies to us now more than ever. You know, I mean, they're deporting pro-Palestine protesters. They're fucking jailing people. Well, I don't know if they're jailing, but they're firing people who criticize Kirk. But you know, I think overall, What is my rating of this video? I think, I mean, terrible animation, terrible lip sync, terrible graphics, terrible drawing, terrible everything. Like, maybe in terms, okay, I'm gonna separate it out. In terms of animation quality, like 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10. In terms of research, I'm gonna say 4 out of 10. I could have done a lot better. I could have been a bit more nuanced. And you know what? If I do make a Stalin video, it's probably gonna be like 20. It's probably gonna be double, triple, quadruple the length. I just think it was not that good, and that's why I enlisted it. I mean, I got 200,000 views, and then I was like, this should not be watched by human eyes unless I am here supervising. You know, you're all my little kids, and I'm supervising and making sure you don't like roast my pussy or my boy pussy.
I'm bracing for the angry commenters already that ignored the whole thing and just posted something like, "Communism killed 100 million people," or
I love the terrible mixing. The terrible music mixing for this shit. The music is so loud. Why is it so fucking loud? Holy shit.
"Wow, replace Stalin with Hitler and the Holodomor with the Holocaust, and this guy sounds like a Nazi." In response, I say, if I replace Stalin with fried chicken in this video, I would sound like a staunch defender of chicken. What's your point?
Literally, people always say that shit. They're like, oh, you're defending Stalin, but what if you were defending Hitler? Like, oh, cool. What if I were defending fucking pissing and pooping my shitty diapers? Like, what's your point? You know, you change words, the meaning changes. Crazy.
Dragging it to the end of the video. Even if you don't agree, it's always good to keep an open mind. And as always, no war but the class war.
Is that cringe, guys? You know, is that cringe? You know, I had that tradition in my channel where I'd end every video in the end card with like no war but the class war. And I did in my latest video too, because I just thought it was cute. My #1 chatter for today's stream says, yeah, a little LARPy. As if this whole fucking channel is in LARPy. Let's be so fucking for real, guys. Somewhat cringe. Okay. Damn, y'all are like roasting me. I feel so bad. I'm like, should I stop doing it for my next video? I think, you know, I think it's cute. You know, I modeled it off of like the Odd Ones Out. You know, I think he would be like, wear your seatbelt or some shit at the end of all his videos. Like they'd have a little catchphrase or something. And I'm like, I'm an animated YouTuber. Why can't I do some shit like that? You know, I love how my links are Twitter. It's the old Twitter logo, YouTube, and it's Reddit. I was like, do not follow me on Reddit, guys. I don't post on there. I have a subreddit, and I finally regained control of it like last week, but no one posts anything on there. And it's like, thank God, because there's no other moderators on that subreddit. I think the other moderator there got banned or some shit, and I had to like request access to it again. At the end of all my videos, I try to include like a silly little clip. And I think I have a clip of Grover Fur, my man, my boy here, and he's like yapping about how Stalin did no crimes ever. And you know, I never cited Fur in this video, and I think you shouldn't cite Fur. I mean, I think he's interesting to read. I mean, Khrushchev Lied has like a kernel of a point, but I think his history is a bit eh. And if you're talking especially to a mainstream audience, you probably shouldn't cite Fur. I still think he's worth reading if you are, you know, a Marxist-Leninist, but he is probably not someone you should cite in like a mainstream debate.
Many years researching this and similar questions, and I have yet to find one crime, that Stalin committed. I know they all say 40 million people.
Based. We can appreciate what Stalin did, you know, I mean, he fucking beat back the Nazis, he saved the United States he saved Europe and the world from Nazi Germany and fascism, you know, he built the first long-lasting socialist state. I mean, like, as flawed and deeply flawed as the man was, I mean, he did some undeniably great shit, you know, and even if you're a fucking reformist or you don't agree with communism, you know, I think you know, beating Hitler is pretty undeniably a good thing that the Soviets did. You know, I mean, without the Soviet Union, you know, I don't think the Allies could have won World War II.